Thank you, Barbara. We only have 2 speakers left. I'm really thrilled to have known D.B. Jackson when he was David Biko. And now I'm getting to know him again. It's great. We'd love to close with D.B. Jackson having tales to tell us.
Thanks. So what have we learned so far? Well, we've learned that if you live near a writer, you want to keep your window shades closed. We've learned that there is a direct line from mucking horse manure out of stables to writing fiction. We've also learned that a mother's passion for literature can shape a son's life, or that a society's ambitions can shape a man's life, or that someone can love books and writing for an entire lifetime and come to a career late in life that yields brilliant results. One of the questions that I get asked quite a bit is, what single bit of advice would you give to aspiring writers? I was asked it the other day, and I gave an answer about keep moving forward, don't retreat into rewrites, something like that. Marrying well is really good advice. But the advice that really speaks to me is love what you do. And that operates on a couple of levels. On one level, it just addresses the realities of being a writer, which are that writing is hard and it doesn't pay well. And if you're doing it because you think you're going to get rich, or you think you're going to attract members of the opposite sex, neither of those things is generally true. But if you're doing it because you love it, if you're doing it because the stories you want to tell are burning a hole in your chest, struggling to get out, that's the reason to write. Love what you do also means you don't write to the market, because the market is a moving target. You write the story that you want to write. Because if you're not in love with the story you're telling, that will come through. Your readers will know it, and your story will suffer. But there's a third aspect to loving what you do that I hadn't really thought about until this week. And before I explain exactly what it is, I want to tell you a very brief anecdote. Back in 1994, I had just made the decision not to pursue a career as an academic and instead to try to become a professional writer, because someone at Tor had expressed interest in the book that would later become Children of Ammon, my first book. And I had heard from this editor, and he said he was going to buy my book, but then I waited and waited and waited, and as it turned out, this was telegraphing the nature of our relationship for 17 years. But I was waiting and waiting for a response from him. And in the meantime, the school year ended, my wife was done with her academic year, and we took a trip out to New Mexico. And while we were there, we went to the Acoma Pueblo, which is also known as Sky City. I don't know if any of you have been there. It's one of the most striking and beautiful places on the face of the earth. And it's a Pueblo community that's built on top of a mesa. And we took a tour of this mesa, because that's the only way you can get in. They don't allow you into Acoma just as a tourist. You have to take a tour and be led around by the people who live there, because it's an active community still. And while we were there, it was a beautiful day, not a cloud in the sky. And at one point I looked up, and there was this tiny little prism of color in the sky. And I don't know where it came from, but it was just this beautiful, truncated version of a rainbow. And I pointed it out to our tour guide and said something to him about, oh, look what I found. And he looked at me with such earnestness. He said, that is a sign of good luck. That is a sign of good fortune. And to me, of course, my first thought was, well, maybe that means I'm going to hear from this editor at Tor finally. And a little while later, we were walking around, and one of the things you find in Acoma is they show you the community, but it's also a chance for the people who live there to sell their wares. And the thing that folks in Acoma are famous for are these gorgeous, gorgeous hand-painted ceramic pots and bowls. And there was a woman selling them, and her work was wonderful, but the thing that caught my eye was something that had been done by her 6-year-old daughter, who was also selling tiny little sculptures. And she had done a sculpture of the storyteller, who is a mythic figure in Pueblo communities. The storyteller is this revered passer-on of oral tradition, of history. And she is always portrayed as kind of a matronly woman sitting with children perched all over her. And so I bought this tiny little sculpture of the storyteller as a talisman from that day and took it home with me, and within a week of getting home, heard from Tor and had my contract again. And the point of that is that, as Jameis was getting at, and I was actually, I was listening to you speak and I was thinking, God, this is brilliant, I wish he'd shut up because he's stealing everything I want to say. Storytelling is bred into us. It is hardwired into the human condition. And the tradition of the storyteller goes back as far as humanity. And it's something that I've thought of at times in my career, that there's a continuity. And I can flatter myself and say that, you know, I'm on a line from Shakespeare to Heinlein to whoever. And the fact is that I'm not flattering myself. I'm not saying that I'm as good as they are. I'm just saying that I'm part of the tradition. And we all are. The people who were in my room this week writing and doing the work and sitting there and critiquing each other's manuscripts are part of that tradition. Readers are part of that tradition because storytelling is an interactive art. Even a book is an interactive medium. Every one of you could read one of Patty's books, and each of you would experience the book differently because we all bring our own history and passions and concerns to the books that we experience. And so I guess what I want to leave you with tonight is the sense that we are all part of something much larger than ourselves, than any one of our careers, than this convention. We are part of the storytelling tradition, and that's a pretty cool place to be.